Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down complex topics into clear, engaging presentations.
So what's this number all about? 500 kilobytes? Well, get this. Back in 2017, the average web app was less than half that size, under 250 kilobytes. Today, we've pretty much doubled it. And that massive jump in size, in complexity, that's probably the single biggest headache for web developers heading into 2025.
So, that leads us to the big question, right? How do we build these amazing, powerful applications that are also, blazingly fast? That's the tightrope we're all walking. In this explainer, we're going to unpack the modern developer's toolkit and look at all the latest trends to figure out exactly how we can do that.
All right, let's dive right in. And where better to start than with the absolute fundamentals, the building blocks of the entire web: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript.
You might think these languages are kind of set in stone, but they're getting some seriously powerful upgrades. We're talking brand new features being baked right into the core languages themselves. What that means for developers is we can write cleaner code and we don't have to lean so heavily on all those external libraries anymore.
A perfect example of this is something called anchor positioning in CSS. Think about this. For years, if you wanted a simple tooltip to stick to a button as you scrolled, you had to write some pretty finicky JavaScript. It was a pain. Now, with anchor positioning, you can do it directly in CSS. You anchor one element to another. Simple as that.
So what this really illustrates is how CSS is evolving to handle tasks that used to be strictly JavaScript's territory. This isn't just about fonts and colors anymore. It's about solving real, complex layout problems. And the best part? It's completely seamless with responsive design. So as the screen size changes, everything just works.
Okay, so that's the front. Let's move on to the back end, the real engine of our applications, and see how things are changing back there. On the server side, Node.js has been king for a long, long time. Its ecosystem is massive, but things are definitely heating up. You've got challengers like Dino, which is all about security and has TypeScript built right in. And then there's the new kid on the block, Bun. It's a total game changer, built for pure speed. We're talking up to 3 times faster server performance than Node.js. That's huge.
Of course, a powerful backend needs a powerful database, and choosing the right one is so critical. Looking at this breakdown, you can really see how things have specialized. Your classic relational databases, the SQLs of the world, are still perfect for things like e-commerce. But for real-time stuff like social media or IoT, the more flexible NoSQL databases are taking over. And then you have this interesting hybrid, NewSQL, carving out its own space in high-traffic, high-stakes areas like fintech.
All right, so our back end is all powered up. Now let's jump back to the front end, what the user actually sees and touches, and look at the frameworks we're using to build that experience.
The front-end world is really dominated by a few major players. As you can see, React is still holding a massive lead in terms of developer usage. Vue has a really strong and dedicated community too, and Angular is still the go-to for a lot of big enterprise apps. But you've got to keep an eye on Svelte. It's smaller, but it's growing fast for a reason.
So what's the big difference between these? Well, it kind of comes down to philosophy. React and Vue, they use what's called a virtual DOM. You can think of it like a lightweight copy of the real page. They make changes there first, figure out the most efficient way to update the actual screen, and then do it. Svelte, though, it's completely different. It's a compiler. It takes your code and, at build time, turns it into tiny, highly optimized vanilla JavaScript. There's no framework overhead in the browser at all, which means smaller bundles and wicked fast performance.
Okay, so we've built our app, we've got our core languages, our backend, our front-end framework. Now for the most important part, making it fast. Because a great app that's slow, well, it isn't a great app.
And why is speed so important? Look at this number, 103%. According to Akamai, just a 2-second delay in your page load time can more than double your bounce rate. That means people just leave. It's staggering. Performance isn't just a nice-to-have for developers, it's absolutely critical for the business.
So how do we get there? The key thing to remember is that performance isn't something you sprinkle on at the end. It has to be a core feature, planned from the very beginning. And there are a few key ways we do that.
It really boils down to 3 main strategies. First, dynamic loading. You only send the code the user needs for the view they're looking at right now. No more giant monolithic bundles. Second, network optimization. We use things like CDNs, content delivery networks, to serve assets from a location that's physically closer to the user. And third, smart caching.
We store assets on the user's device so they don't have to keep downloading the same stuff over and over.
And speaking of caching, this chart says it all. Modern techniques, especially something called a service worker, are incredible. Basically, a service worker is a little script that runs in the background in the browser, and it can intercept network requests. Look at that cache hit rate, 96%. What that means is for anyone who's visited your site before, it can load almost instantly, right from a local cache. It's a total game changer for perceived performance.
And finally, and this is so important, you can't improve what you don't measure. It's kind of shocking, but only about 31% of websites actually get good scores on Google's Core Web Vitals. But here's the kicker. If you set up continuous monitoring, you can catch most performance issues super fast. And the reward for getting it right, good performance is directly linked to way higher conversion rates. It just makes sense.
So there you have it. We've gone from core languages getting these incredible new superpowers to blazing fast back-end runtimes to whole new ways of thinking about front-end frameworks with compilers. And all of it is tied together by this absolute focus on peak performance. The 2025 Developers Toolkit is, without a doubt, the most powerful it's ever been. So now the toolkit is laid out, what will you build first?